Hello, welcome to Big Bang Radio Spotlights. This is a show where we talk to independent artists from all around the world all about their music and their process for making it. I'm your host, Isaac Anderson, and today I get to sit down with the band The Wilderness. Without any further ado, here's the interview. Jonas, thank you so much for joining me today. I really do appreciate it. Before we kind of get into the meat and potatoes of the band, I wanted to ask you, just on a personal level, what is your earliest musical memory?
I was probably 7 or 8 years old, and my parents were listening to The Rising by Bruce Springsteen, who was my musical hero, and they were cleaning the house and listening to Bruce Springsteen, and I remember listening to the Rising and thinking that it was the most awesome thing I'd ever heard in my life.
Because I mean, who can argue with the boss over there? I mean, he's the greatest.
Exactly.
Well, how exactly did you get started playing music? I know you play guitar in the band, but was there like an instrument that you started on? Was it the guitar? And how exactly did you fall into start learning that?
So I actually started out playing bass. I got a bass guitar for my 12th birthday, and very quickly transitioned to guitar because I wanted to go and play in front of people, and I couldn't play in front of people on my own with just a bass. So I transitioned to guitar and took it out onto the street of my hometown in the UK and went busking. And I learned about 4 or 5 chords. And then that was it. So I was strumming away on the street corners with my guitar from about the age of 12.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, was there someone in your life, maybe like your family or just your friend circle, that was really influential in the way that you kind of started playing music? I don't know. Was there somebody in your life like that?
Well, I mean, I was the only one in my family who was really super sort of gung-ho to play music. And starting out, I didn't have that many people to look up to, but my dad had a guitar that I would play. But by the time I got to high school, one of my music teachers, he's called Mr. Underwood, he was a huge help in sort of making me push the music, and we're still friends to this day. So, that he didn't sort of come into my life until I was sort of about 17, but those very formative years between sort of 16, 17, 18, when I graduated high school, he was like one of the most important people in my musical life, and I owe a lot of my career to him.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, maybe he'll be watching this. I don't know.
I hope so.
I know you said you busked in the UK. I know that's a big thing in that part of the world too. It's over here in the US too, but I heard it was really, really big. It's like a whole different thing in the UK. Like it's really something special in the UK. But were you like
absolutely?
Were you in like full form bands before The Wilderness?
The first band I ever played in, I was in, I just started high school, and a bunch of grade 10s were starting a metal band, and I told them that I could play the drums. I could not play the drums at all. I'd never played the drums in my life. I just wanted to be a part of their band. So I played, I had a rehearsal with them, and they quickly realized I couldn't play drums, which is then when they said, well, why don't you try bass? So I played bass for that band for a while. And then I shifted to playing guitar, as I said earlier, and then pretty much since then I've been playing guitar in bands.
So how exactly did The Wilderness start? Were you guys friends before all this? Did you just meet through the power of music? I don't know. How exactly did you guys start?
It's kind of like it's a pretty brilliant story. I mean, it's a pretty simple story, but for me, it feels pretty brilliant because the fact that the stars aligned like that, it makes me feel very lucky. So everybody except for myself was studying here in Canada at a university called Queen's University. So Carl and Sasha and Henry knew each other through school. I had met Sasha and Henry briefly at a jam that happened at a friend's house, but then we didn't see each other for a while. But fast forward a couple months, and we're rehearsing. I was working at an open mic at a local bar, and in walked Carl, Henry, and Sasha. And it was snowing. It was, freezing cold out. Nobody was really there except for those guys. So we ended up just jamming for most of my shift. And then I basically begged them to start a band, and not too long after that, Liam joined, and not too long after that, Nick joined, and sort of the rest is sort of history.
Where exactly did the band name come from?
So our second or third rehearsal, we were saying, okay, so we're a band now, right? Okay, let's figure it out. What are we going to call ourselves? And Carl came up with the band name The Wilderness, because he just finished reading this Dick Proenneke book called, like, it's Into the Wilderness, and basically the guy moved to Alaska and built a log cabin and sort of lived off the land for a while, and we all thought that was a cool story, so that's how it came to be. He just suggested it, and it stuck.
I'm trying not to fall asleep in this graveyard. Leave the light on when there's nobody home. We can drive out to the West End, listen to your favorite songs. You can cry about your old friends.
Kind of hopping onto your songwriting process right now. Obviously, you guys seem like you are pretty good friends with each other, and you being kind of one of the lead guys, do you tend to write music on your own, like the lyrics-wise, or do you guys kind of try to write the music as a collective? You kind of go over and try to just write the lyrics yourself? I don't know. How exactly does your songwriting process go?
That's a great question. So when the band first sort of came to be, Carl and I had already written some songs independently before the band, and those were sort of brought to the table that ended up turning into some of the Wilderness songs we play today. But for our last record, what would happen is we went away to a cabin in the middle of the wilderness, and we all started writing some tunes. And what would happen is in the morning we'd wake up, we'd pour a pot of coffee, and we'd each sort of go to our corner, start writing down ideas, and then around lunchtime or in the evening, we'd come together and sit around the table, and I'd say, hey, I've got this idea, here are the lyrics, how can we build upon that? So Carl, Liam, and I did a lot of the songwriting, where, I would start something, and then maybe they would help me finish it. Nick, the sax player, wrote a tune for the album called You the Ocean, and Sasha and Carl wrote a tune as well called Settled Up. So, in the past where I had sort of been predominantly the main songwriter, this most recent album, it was a real collaborative effort, because we'd all sort of start something and bring it to the table. And then once it was brought to the table, that would help finish the songs.
When you craft your lyrics, do you tend to kind of go more to the experiential side of things, or are you more into like kind of crafting a narrative over just a figurative story, or just phonetics? I don't know. I kind of get the sense that there's a lot of experiential into your lyrics from what I've heard, but you're also very big on crafting a story out of that too. But in your own words, how exactly does that go for you?
Well, I've only really ever been good about writing about the things that I know. So, one of my heroes is Bruce Springsteen, and he writes a lot from the first person, but maybe from other people's perspectives. And I've tried to do that, but it's been a bit difficult. I've always been sort of the person that like really feels something. And when I really feel something, I want to write it down. And so, yeah, I guess you could say that all of our songs, and especially the songs that I've written, are all stories, and they are all more or less like firsthand experiences that we've lived through, and I find it's a lot more easy to be honest in your songwriting when you're writing about what you know and what you've lived through, because it's your experience and you therefore you know it best. So they say write what you know, and that's kind of what I've always tried to do.
Most people that are fans of you, or maybe if they're just discovering you for the first time right now, so you have a Brit, obviously you're the Brit, you have a Frenchman, 2 Americans, and 2 Canadians in the group, and that's pretty diverse. That's a pretty diverse group right there.
Yes.
How exactly do you think those diverse backgrounds kind of bleed into your music?
That's a great question. So, we grew up in sort of all different areas of the world, and therefore we grew up listening to very different music. Carl and I were really into like heavy metal as kids, and then I sort of transitioned out of that into more towards folk music. Nick is super into jazz, and so is Henry. Liam's really into hip hop and sort of rock and roll, and Sasha's really big into funk. And so we listened to all of these different kinds of music growing up, and then as a band, when the six of us are all together in one room, that's where I think our influences sort of merged together in the big melting pot that kind of turned into our brand as sort of the Wilderness's rock and roll. But we all take parts of ourselves and parts of our sort of upbringing and parts of our musical upbringing to the band, and I think has a huge impact on the way we write and perform music.
Hopping onto your location right now. So you mentioned Canada. Specifically, it's in Kingston, Ontario, right?
That's right.
Awesome. So how is the local music scene over there? Obviously, at the time of recording this, we're kind of in the midst of the COVID pandemic, and live shows can't really happen right now. But just as the local music scene was going just a couple months back, how exactly is it for your kind of music?
Man, the music scene in Kingston is fantastic. There's so many venues around town that support live music, and there's so many talented musicians and bands that play in town. We owe a huge debt of gratitude to this city for supporting us as a band, supporting live and local music. There's a band called the Tragically Hip, which were basically the biggest band that Canada has ever had, that came out of Kingston. They were huge in the 80s and 90s. And Rob Baker, their guitar player, actually produced our record, which was amazing. There's another band called the Glorious Sons who have blown up in the last couple of years, and they even supported the Rolling Stones, not once, but twice. And they're from Kingston. There's so many amazing musicians here and so many great places to play. And the better still, there's an appetite for that live music within the community. So, you can go, pre-COVID, on any night of the week and walk into any one of the bars and you could hear some people playing music that could blow you away. And we're very fortunate to be a part of that scene.
Well, kind of staying on the show thing. So I think you guys have played around 400 shows in the last 4 years, right?
Yep.
Now that's 100 shows a year. That's no small feat. And out of all of those, what is one of your most memorable shows that you've done?
Oh, funnily enough, one of the most memorable shows that we've done was actually this August. Reason being, our album came out, and we wanted to play music live. We wanted to play our album live, but we were in the middle of a pandemic. So we were able to actually pull off basically putting on a small music festival with just our band in a farm field just outside of town. And we did 2 shows. The provincial guidelines said that only 100 people were allowed at each, so long as they were socially distant. So we did 2 of them. We sold both of them out within a day. So we did one in the afternoon and one in the evening. It down with rain for the first show, but we played through it, and the evening show was wonderful, and it was so amazing to be able to actually play music again to people, even in the midst of COVID, and everybody was safe and everybody had a good time, and it was just the best feeling in the world to play again. So that to me is definitely one of the most memorable shows we've done, just because the sheer amount of work it took to pull it off safely in the middle of a pandemic was staggering, and we did it, and it was amazing.
Kind of actually going away from music real quick. This might be a little bit off the wall question, but I always kind of like asking the artists that I talk to this. If you weren't playing music, what would you be doing?
That's a good question, and it's funny you should ask that, because right now I'm not really playing a bunch of music, and I'm not really sure what I should be doing. So I've been kind of thinking about that. I was really into photography and filmmaking growing up. I always would have loved to have been an actor. That would be pretty cool. But if I'm being sort of maybe a bit more realistic about it, I really like cooking, and so maybe I would have gone to culinary school and had opened a restaurant or something, I like to think that maybe I could own a cool restaurant that also has live music in somehow. You know, if I wasn't playing live music, I'd like to at least facilitate a way for it to exist.
You know, there's something that always is tied in with artists, specifically musicians, that whenever I ask them that question, they always go to something else that's related to art, like film, specifically video, like film, another sort of like audio thing, like broadcast, or usually cooking. Like I'm a musician. I went to culinary school too. So I mean, like that, it's all really connected. We really can't get away from entertaining people. So I mean, it's
deeply ingrained in us, I think.
Yeah, and it's really cool, and it's really cool that you kind of have that same notion. You're just an entertainer at heart. It looks like. Well,
yeah.
No problem. Well, let's kind of hop onto your new album real quick. So your new album recently hit streaming. Until Tomorrow is the album, and we were talking a little bit beforehand about some of the music on there. It's really, really cool. What's kind of the process from making that album? Like from kind of how did it kind of start? Like maybe the recording process, and how did it kind of come to be?
The album was a really crazy process. I tell people that we spent most of the year in isolation because, as I said earlier, we spent 2 weeks in a cabin in the middle of nowhere writing this in January, where we didn't see any other people other than ourselves. And then we spent all of February rehearsing, the first 2 weeks of March recording, and then the national lockdown happened. The album came together really, really quickly, a lot quicker than I expected. We wrote 20 songs in 14 days, not all of which made the final cut of the album. And then a lot of the songs actually came to life in the studio. Some were more sort of fully baked than others when we went in. For example, If I Have to Die was pretty much well to go. Where I Roam was pretty much ready to go. And The Silence was ready to go. So those songs we could kind of like bash out pretty quickly live off the floor. But other songs like 25 and You the Ocean and Settled Up, we really sort of took the submarine down to sort of very deep depths in the studio to record them because we'd actually never played them before as a band all the way through. So we were kind of figuring out our parts as we went. But we really owe Rob Baker, who was our producer, and Niall Spencer, who was the engineer. We owe them so much because they helped. They were so valuable, their help in the studio. And Rob as a producer was so good. He gave each and every one of us time and support and gave us sort of guided us through the recording process in such a way that it brought out things that I didn't even think we were capable of. So, you know, the whole process, it was a lot quicker than I expected. And I think that's partly to do with the fact that we were really gung-ho on writing and recording an album. And the other part of the fact was that we were working with two absolute pros who really gave us the time of day.
What's next for The Wilderness? Are you guys planning any sort of live streams, any live shows up in your neck of the woods? I don't know. What's happening with you guys?
So we're actually going to go away again and try and write another album. Basically, that's kind of all we can do right now. We want to play some live stream shows in the new year. We're going away next week, and we're gonna do some more writing and hopefully some more recording come January, February. We also are releasing a video every week of us playing the album live off the floor. We went back to the studio in July and filmed us playing the songs and edited them together. So we've got some live content coming out on our Facebook and YouTube channels too, just to keep the fans engaged.
If people really want to keep a hold of what's going on with The Wilderness, how can people find you guys on social media?
We're at The Wilderness Kingston on Facebook and Instagram, at The Wilderness ON on Twitter. If you search The Wilderness Band in YouTube, you'll find us there too. And www.thewildernessband.com is our website.
You got that down, man. I feel like you've done that before. That was like right down, boom, 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 boom. I like it. Well,
thank you.
Jonas, man, it's been a pleasure talking to you today. I really do appreciate it. One more question before we go. As I mentioned before, I'm a musician, but I also love film, and I feel like other musicians have that same sort of love. You said you were into kind of filmmaking and photography specifically before earlier in the interview, and we actually do a movie show up here called Big Bang Cinema that I host with a good friend of mine, and I ask all the musicians I talk to before they go, "What is your favorite movie?"
My favorite movie is a World War II movie called Fury with Brad Pitt and Shia LaBeouf, and it's just a fantastic movie about some American soldiers right at the end of World War II in a tank when total war is declared at the very end of World War II. It's a fantastic movie, and I watch it every week. I literally watch it once a week with my housemates.
Wow, you watch it every week for real?
Yeah, we're kind of obsessed with it.
Thanks to The Wilderness for sitting down with us and talking all about their music. If you guys want to see more interviews just like this, you can go to facebook.com/Studio67NCC, youtube.com/NashComCollege, or you can find us on Instagram at Studio67NCC. Thank you all for watching. I'm Isaac Anderson, and until next time, stay lovely.